So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Regia Roncucci, and I work for the Secretariat of the European Parliament Intergroup on Climate Change, Biodiversity and Sustainable Development. I'm delighted to welcome you all to today's event. We will be commemorating the one-year anniversary of the proposal of the European Commission on sustainable use for pesticides regulations. So during today's event, we will have the chance to look back to the steps that were taken towards sustainable agriculture in Europe, and also to highlight where are the key challenges that lie ahead. So in June 2022, the European Commission has adopted a proposal on the sustainable use of pesticides regulation, which is linked to some key targets drafted by the Farm to Fork strategy and the Biodiversity strategy. Among the key targets that are designed by this regulation, we have legally binding targets at the EU level to reduce 50% of use and risk of chemical pesticides, as well as more hazardous pesticides by 2030, as well as the adoption of more environmental friendly pest control. For example, the integrated pest management, which focus on pest prevention and prioritize alternative to pest control and using chemical pesticides only as a last resort, as well as the ban of all pesticides in sensitive areas, such as green areas and public parks and so on. So this occasion of today's events, it's an opportunity to deliver onto the vision of sustainable agri-food systems, and including some different aspects of the SUR, such as the targets, the sensitive areas, and the integrated pest management, as well as diving into the different alternatives, such as biopesticide, digital and precision agriculture, and new genomic techniques. So I would like to thank all the speakers for being here today, both online and in person, and also to all the participants who are joining us. I would like also to invite the audience to participate in the discussion during the Q&A session. So for participants who are in the room, feel free to raise your hand when we reach the Q&A sessions toward the end of the event. And for those attending online, please feel free to share your question in the Q&A in the chat box, where please remember to mention also the speaker to whom your question is best addressed. So without further ado, I would like to provide the floor to our co-host of today's event, Mr. Bogovič.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everybody. It's really a privilege that I can, together with my colleague Ulrike Müller, be as co-host of this event. Good afternoon to all panelists, to all participants, to colleagues. I see also a reporter for CAP, Peter Jahr among us. Sarah Wiener will join us, as I understood, a little later. So it's really a privilege to be, and we are in time that at that moment we have big debate about these files which are part of Green Deal, part of Farm to Fork, and sometimes we say that there are some twins legislation if we put together a pesticides use regulation, natural restoration law, and it's really a challenging time, as all you follow, I'm sure you are here. First, I can say I'm from Slovenia, from EPP Group, and I'm also a small farmer in Slovenia, and I really share a strong commitment to protection to our environment and the sustainability of agriculture practices. So it's great that we will have many of those who have some opportunity among us. And also, I forgot to say, especially good afternoon to a colleague from Committee of Region who prepared the report in Committee of the Region to be among us. So all stakeholders, as it was said, are here at the same table to speak, because I think it's really very important that we speak about all solutions which we have, which we should have, which we will have, and to organize all this agriculture sector that we can really ensure food security for people in Europe and also broader, because we know that Europe is the continent which also export the food. All we know that this regulation, as it was said, it was tabled. We are now in different committees debate, and the committee Agri Committee, and as it's no surprise that there are very different opinions among different groups, and it's not easy to find compromise about the proposal which was tabled from the Commission. I think that what is clear in our EPP group, we really think that this draft regulation is not right, is unsuitable for further consideration. That's our opinion. Different groups have different opinions, and we also explained many times why we think that it's so. And one of the reasons what we said is this, that the common agriculture policy started this year, and we should find out what these measures which are related to additional financing of green measures will deliver to greening, to more sustainable agriculture in the future. And there are new interventions, and we always think that in agriculture is not the topic, or not the sector in which it's possible to have revolutions, but it's necessary to have evolutions with tools on the table at the right time. And here we think that we still miss some solutions. The next things, what is very important, and what we asked together in Agri Committee and also the European Council, is impact assessment on food security. Today, the Commission tabled additional document, and it will be discussed, as I understood, first in the Council and then later in September in the European Parliament, if my informations are correct. So I think it's really necessary to see what is in this document, and how it will influence on food security in Europe, how it will influence on the possibility for farming for small farmers, other topics related to this war, related to import in Europe. So I think we are really responsible to ensure food security in future. And as I read first page, it's not possible to read more than this few pages. I'm a little surprised that there are differences between some others, Wageningen research and this research. We will see. We must, as I said, check this and to see it's really 1-2% reduction of production, or it's higher. Like it was in other publications, what we got in the past. What is also known in the last days, that in EU the use of pesticides decreased for 1/3, 33% in last 4 years. It means that also directive works, because there was a big discussion at the beginning that there is no result after this directive on pesticides use. And so I think it's really necessary to debate about all these topics. We also have some concerns when we speak about farmers, and especially small farms. For them, sometimes it's not so easy to introduce, I don't know, precision farming methods, other things. So it's really taken into account, because all we are sure that the more sustainable agriculture depends a lot on this. If we will have also small farms, not just big companies which do this business. The definition of sensitive areas, it's opened, and it's as it was tabled, is for me really very problematic. And these bans on use on big areas. I'm, for example, in Slovenia. In Slovenia, we have 37% of Natura plus other protected areas. So at the end, it's 45% of all area with full ban of use of pesticides, because this is a sensitive area, what is not acceptable, and really problematic, like other additional administrative burden. So, as I said, I'm from EPP. Our position is very clear, and I really try to explain what is going on and find a solution. I will conclude with this, that it's really necessary to find and thank for organizing this event today, to find solution, put in the timeline all these bans, other things, and ensure that people, farmers, will be sure that it will be possible to make their business in future and fit Europeans. There is a lot of debate about financing. We all know that there are no new money for these topics, and when I spoke, and I spoke really a lot with farmers in last months, they're a little upset because everybody shows this money in common agriculture policy. But farmers don't like this money. They don't like to be dependent on this money, because they know that they produce the food which has the value, sometimes too low value. And if there are serious farmers, their income are, I don't know, 70–80% depend on food production. So for them, it's really not acceptable to get such a bans, or not to use the land for basic production and be depend on some additional subsidies or European money. But at the end of the day, we all know that there is no additional money for these measures. So I will stop here. I wish, and I'm sure that it will be very lively debate, and thanks for all who are here, and especially thanks for all of many of you. We cooperate in the past, and I think it's very important that we debate and we show new solutions, which will be presented also from the panelists, and to make this evolution together with farmers and not against them. And it's really no need that there will be bigger Euroscepticism between farmers because of measures we accept here in the European Union. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bogovič, for setting the scene of today's event, and also for highlighting some key position of your political group when it comes to very important political files inside the European Union. So thank you very much for sharing the information. So I would like to move on with presenting the different panelists that we have today for the panel discussion. So joining us online today, we have Andrew Owen Griffith, which is Head of Plants and Organics at DG Sante, the European Commission. We have here in the room Laurent Auger, Deputy Director General at CropLife Europe. Joining us online, we have Peter Miedendorp, President of CEST, the European Council of Young Farmers. Here in the room, we have Heinz Joachim Hofer, member of the Municipal Council of Altenkirchen in Germany, and the rapporteur for the opinion on SUR by the Committee of the Regions. Joining us in the room, we have Elena Amboul, EU Affair Manager at Agroecology Europe. Joining us online, we have Dr. Carsten Schmidt, Chair of the Agricultural Working Group at EURO, the European Federation of National Association of Water Services. And finally, in the room, we have Jelte Wiersma, Secretary General of SEMA, the European Agriculture Machinery. So hoping that I didn't make too many mistakes in pronouncing your names, I would like to ask you all a first question to start with, which is why is sustainable use of pesticides regulation important for your organization? So to answer this question, I would like to follow the same structure that we have in the agenda. So I would like to provide the floor to Andrew.
So thank you very much for the introduction. I hope you can all hear me well. I suppose the answer to the question is relatively straightforward. It's part of a package of actions held in the Farm to Fork and biodiversity strategies of the Commission that we believe are necessary to move towards a more sustainable agriculture in Europe. sustainable agriculture that's necessary to protect biodiversity, to protect our water, our soil, our bird life, our pollinators, but also to protect human health and ultimately to protect agriculture in Europe. So it's not a standalone action, but it's obviously one of the more upfront, the more newest beginning of the actions as part of this strategy. I think it's important to stress we're not asking for or proposing a total ban on pesticides or on chemical pesticides. This is part of a transition towards more sustainable use of pesticides and the use of lower risk alternatives, and to an agriculture to which integrated pest management is central. So that would be my brief answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to provide now the floor to Laurent.
Thank you very much. So first, thanks for the invitation and pleasure to be here and be able to explain our view from CropLife Europe. Within our association or activities, just to start with, our focus really on the 4 pillars we have, being delivering solutions for farmers in the area of conventional pesticides, but also biopesticides, biotechnology, and digital precision agriculture. And I think we all agree on the challenge ahead of us, looking at climate change, the struggle on resources we're all facing, the shrinking farmland, for instance, and this kind of increased pressure on today's farming. And we really believe that the innovation angle is clearly a way out, a possible future and a solution for the farmers. And in this case, we believe all members in our association are able to deliver such innovation so the proper toolbox is available for farmers to tackle this challenge. I think that's why the SUR for us is so important. It's really a piece of legislation that can further unlock the potential for innovation, especially in this case, mainly the biopesticide angle and the digital farming angle. We see, for instance, in the initial proposal of the Commission, I have to say, some positive developments. We would prefer to go even a step further, but for instance, just considering the suggestions made around IPM, which are still at the core of the approach in the Commission proposal. This is very positive, but for instance, an extra layer adding the digital angle to this uptake of IPM strategies by farmers would be a real plus. I'm not going into the details. There's colleagues from SEMA also with us today, and we have common projects here to try to bring something on the table, very concrete, when it comes to project about labeling and use of information from product to help farmers in their decision making. But we really believe the SUR can be a door opener for this. And similarly, for example, for biopesticides, there's a positive step taken in the Commission proposal. We have for the first time a proposal of what could be called biocontrol solution. We really welcome this kind of development. It can set the path forward. We really want, of course, to make sure that this definition remains broad enough to capture solutions on the market today and also be a little bit more future-proof, because we see technologies arriving in other regions, farmers having access to novel types of biopesticide in the US, in South America, and not yet in the EU, to be very clear. So that's also something where we clearly see the SUR with the potential to help the farming community. Thank you. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Laurent, and thank you for highlighting innovation as one of the key solutions for farmers. I would like now to provide the floor to Peter.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Peter Menendorp. I'm an arable farmer from the Netherlands, and I have the honor to be the new president of CEST, the organization representing European young farmers. And I think it's pretty obvious that the sustainable use of pesticide regulation is of most importance for our organization, but foremost for our members. Young farmers have been committed and proactive to the use of sustainable plant protection products and the application of integrated pest management in principles in their fields. For example, by favoring non-chemical before chemical methods and adopting their application practices and equipment. For example, spot spraying applications, to name an example. With the regulatory framework currently discussed, we hope to see the establishment of a clear pathway towards use and risk reduction, inclusive of all farmers, particularly because of the importance of pest management in the context of increasing climate pressure and emerging new plant pests. Plant protection remains a key aspect of successful risk management on farm level. Moreover, the implementation gaps of the 2009 directive had a bit of a lack of clarity around the definition of integrated pest management. Really, the translation from theory to practice needs to be made. Moreover, we really need alternatives for chemical production, and we hope this new regulation gives us the opportunity to uptake viable, reliable, and affordable alternatives. And lastly, we hope for finding a solution of the lack of capacity building at a farm level. At the moment, we see a lack of right tools for farmers, particularly in the terms of knowledge and investments, but also into advisory services. So far, these tools have not been enough, and we hope to be able to bring more focus on those. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you for sharing your perspective of sustainable agriculture practices and also for highlighting some key challenges ahead. I would like now to provide the floor to Mr. Hofer.
Dear members of the European Parliament, dear experts and dear participants, let me start with a few words to the good cooperation between the Committee of the Regions and the Intergroup on Climate Change, Biodiversity and Sustainable Development. The CEST is part of the advisory group of this intergroup, and we thank you for the good cooperation. For the intergroup, local and regional dimensions are very important. As the rapporteur for the European CEST opinion on the sustainable use of pesticides, I am delighted to attend this event. The CEST fully supports the binding targets for reducing the use and risk of pesticides in line with the objectives of the Farm to Fork strategy, because reducing the use and the risk of pesticides is the only way to consolidate a sustainable food system in Europe and to ensure food sovereignty without destroying biodiversity. In our opinion, adopted at a large majority, the CEST strongly recommends to reduce the use and risk of chemical pesticides to better fight against pests, help farmers to become more resilient, as these pesticides are now very expensive, and to protect our health, our environment, and our biodiversity. Moreover, if we want to produce more for ensuring food security on the long term, biological control is the solution. Indeed, the Solar Cut project, presented in December at the European Parliament and supported by Ms. Clara Aguilera, clearly shows that there are many examples of pests that cannot be controlled by chemical pesticides anymore, since they have become totally resistant. Then, biological control is the only effective tool remaining for intensive production systems as greenhouses. At global level also, in its May 2022 report on the EU response to Russia's war in Ukraine, the Center for European Policy Studies states that lowering standards could lead to environmental costs and exacerbate price volatility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing forward the position of the Committee of the Region and also for highlighting some important angles such as the one of health and food security. Moving on, I would like to provide now the floor to Elena.
Good afternoon, and thank you a lot, everyone, for the invitation and the opportunity to share the position of the association that I'm representing, so Agroecology Europe Association. We are an association composed of scientists, also farmers, also young people, and also engaged citizens who believe that agroecology can represent a powerful approach and to go towards more sustainability. So one reason, we have three main reasons why we think that the SUR regulation is important. First of all, our members, so scientific community, as well as farmers and engaged citizens, they tell us it's feasible, desirable, and urgent to reduce the use and the risk of pesticides. Also for us, it's an important piece of legislation because this is the occasion also to recognize agroecology as a systemic response to not only the questions that are addressed on pesticides, but also for the different challenges that our food system in Europe are faced to. So we have the scientific evidences showing that agroecology can maintain and improve agricultural productivity, that it can produce healthy food, it can reduce the negative impact of agriculture on ecosystems and human health. It can also ensure and improve the economic viability of EU farms. And also, agroecology can improve also the adaptation and mitigation towards climate change and also provide responses to the biodiversity loss. So for us also, the SUR is the occasion to really align EU policies regarding agricultural and food system with also scientific evidences. That's and to improve food security in Europe and worldwide. So that's important for us to point out those different points. And also we are arriving also in a critical moment in terms of biodiversity loss, in terms of planetary boundaries and operating in a safe space for humanity. And we know that the loss of biodiversity, and in particular to the insect and bird population in farmlands in Europe, is a danger to food security. So that's for us a really important occasion to take a stand and be ambitious because we do have the solutions to drastically reduce pesticides use and risk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elena. Thank you also for bringing forward the views of some of your members and also, of course, for bringing some scientific aspects on the discussion when it comes to different angles of SUR. I would like now to provide the floor to Mr. Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invitation also. And I'm coming from Euro, and that is the voice of the European water sector. And then with the SUR, I would say mainly of the drinking water sector. In the drinking water sector, we have several impairments caused by pesticides, and this is not a side issue. It's rather getting more and more a hot topic. And we notice that the current system fails to protect drinking water resources because we find those pesticides, and especially the metabolites and the persistent ones, and in several groundwater bodies all over the place, but also in surface waters. And groundwater is a major problem because groundwater has a long memory, and once contaminated, it takes years or decades to get the levels reduced or to improve. And drinking water treatment for these mobile and persistent metabolites, especially for those, is very cost intensive and technically not really well feasible. And the problem got worse over the last months because perhaps, as you know, in the Drinking Water Directive, we have the differentiation between relevant and non-relevant metabolites. And you know, if the non-relevant metabolites are accepted at higher levels than those relevant metabolites. And what we now notice is that the ECHA, as regulation agency, is evaluating the pesticides, and by this evaluation, we cannot rely on the classification of the metabolites as it was before. In fact, that happened several times, for instance, with chlorthalonil or with metolachlor, and thereby a previously non-relevant metabolite was classified as relevant from one day to the other. And the problem we have is that in the consequence, we have suddenly to comply with other limit values from one day to the other. And that, I think it is self-evident that it is no good situation for us. And we have no sufficient planning reliability any longer. And we are not able to quickly adapt the drinking water treatment based on these processes. And as a consequence, we hope for a strong SUR for the drinking water. You know that the sensitive areas cover the drinking water protection zones. This is very important for us to avoid synthetic pesticides in this special area due to the effects I've reported before. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schmidt, for bringing to everyone's attention how the SUR affects water management and water security in Europe. And I would like now to provide the floor to Jelte.
Good afternoon to you all. Thank you for the invitation. Yes, again, as said, I represent the agricultural machinery industry in Europe. Europe is the most advanced in agricultural machinery and the biggest exporter of agricultural machinery in the world. We are top-notch, what you can think of, and it's made in Europe. So it's something we are very proud of. As Laurent already said, we work together with CropLife and others to make agriculture more sustainable. Two little thoughts about the SUR, why it's important. First, picture farmers and what is coming to them, sitting there on your farm. Speak with farmers, of course, every day. And things coming from all sides. Mrs. Thunberg is going by Twitter on farmers. Others come with legislation towards farmers, if it's regional, national, European, global even sometimes. These people need to digest all that, and that's not that easy. My neighbors are apple growers. My other neighbors on the other side grow potatoes and sugar beet. Gosh, they need to be very good businessmen. They need to be managers of their finance. They need to be managers of their land, their soil health, their machine, the technology, learning what is out there, what are the new technologies to pick up to make farming more sustainable. And then they need to provide safe and very cheap food, because food is very cheap by and large. And those challenges are all for the risk of these farmers. I mean, they are entrepreneurs at the end of the day, and they can't really gamble with their yields, because a farmer has a yield a year, sometimes two, depending on. In a lifespan of farming that's 35 yields, you can't really go for error and trial and error in such a circumstance. That, I think, is a general picture that should be taken into consideration. The second thing is the European Commission, fortunately, did a very great thing, we think, with how technology can play a part in this, which is what we face is the turnover of sprayers is very low, and certification, access to the market is often nationally organized. If we would do that on a European level and have one framework for sprayers, that would effectively make the machine cheaper. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved. The volumes of machines are very low. They're custom made often for special regions. A lot of handwork goes into that. If you could make the production simpler because there's one standard for Europe. The machine gets cheaper. So you get new spraying machines quicker in the fields, because machines get more expensive by the year because they're more high tech. If you can push the price of these machines down, you have quicker, newer sprayers in the fields, and these newer sprayers have new nozzle techniques, very precise, and then you use less chemicals. If you push that, it's a positive message to farmers, I would say. It's different than saying you are not allowed to do this and you must do that. That's from my side, I think, a passionate message that take care of the farmer a bit and be proud of them. They are the people who make sure we eat 3 times a day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hjalte, for bringing forward the vision of farmers and also for presenting what are the key challenges on an everyday basis for European farmers. So going back to Andrew from the European Commission, I would like to ask you an additional question, which is about shedding some light on the political deadlock surrounding the SUR. And if you could provide also some insights whether the European Commission will be able to successfully deliver on the SUR before the end of its term.
I try my best, but obviously it's not easy to look into the future or predict the future. I think the first thing to say is that pesticides have always been a divisive file. We see very extreme and polarized views on pesticides. The consultation that we carried out before we came forward with the SUR proposal reflected that in stakeholder feedback. And indeed, the discussions in Council and the discussions in Parliament that are ongoing also represent a range of diverse views, which we've listened to and we've tried to take on board as far as possible. But if you're going to have very diverse views, it's not very difficult to please everybody. I suppose the central answer to your question should be in the response that the Commission published today. The 241 response, as it's called, the response to the request from Council for additional data to supplement the impact assessment. This was published today and is a very substantial document which was sent today to Parliament and sent today to Council, but is also now publicly available on the Commission's website. And it deals with a lot of the issues that have already been arranged around the table today, including innovation, research, support, sensitive areas, actions on alternatives, and the list goes on. So so far the deadlock in discussing in Council the more sensitive issues of sensitive areas and the setting of targets, for example, which seems to be the most difficult issues to engage with, have been not possible until this 241 request is published. So we are happy to say that is now published, and we hope then that in the engagement with both Parliament and Council, we'll be able to break that deadlock and move forward and engage with these more difficult topics that have not been discussed in detail yet. So, I mean, the basic message is we reaffirm the need. The 241 response reaffirms the need for the proposal and for the associated targets. And we, as the Commission, intend therefore to move forward to discuss this proposal with Council and Parliament in the normal process of interinstitutional negotiations. But ultimately, whether we can and do deliver within this term is as much down to the cooperation and the response of Parliament and Council as it is to the Commission. So we stand by the proposal. We are happy to hear and discuss with Council and Parliament, and we're willing to do that. We're in that process now. and we hope we can meet the deadline. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for your comprehensive answer and also for shedding some lights on the key steps ahead when it comes to SUR. I would like now to provide the floor to Laurent for a second question. So how can we effectively combine the tools available to farmers, including the promotion of IPM and the advancements in innovation technologies, while simultaneously improving authorization timelines?
Thank you. That's a lot in one question, but you mentioned IPM, so maybe first, it was really positive to see the publication by the Commission a couple of weeks or months ago of this first centralized database of IPM good practices and specific guidelines per crop. I think we have more than 1,000 and 1,000 best practices collected in various languages and 300 crop-specific guidelines. So it really shows, according to us, that really the concept of IPM is local and has to be defined at local level, because it shows us those strategies needs to be applied, taking into account agronomic conditions and weather conditions, for instance, at the local level. There's no one-size-fits-all solution when we start talking about IPM. So it's really good to show or illustrate, let's say, even at the EU level, in a centralized place, the complexity. And I think it also shows how sometimes actual crop protection is done, and the extensive work done by farmers and grower groups to try to find solutions to fight pests in a different way compared to years and years ago. So also showing that in a way the SUD, the previous directive, even not perfect in its implementation, still yielded results and progresses were made. I think I've just skimmed through the document published by the Commission today as well, the study referred by Andrew. And we also see here published updated figures regarding trends of reduction of risk and use, those indicators. I think it's also very positive to see that progresses were made. I think it goes back to 2021, the latest update. But compared to the baseline, that's also showing a situation evolving in a positive way. So that brings also a different angle, I have to say, to the current narrative that sometimes might paint farmers using or over-relying on substances. Here we show also, it shows in a way that progresses were made in practices, but it also shows that some tools are becoming not available anymore. That's also one consequence of seeing such figures. So it also, for us, is a signal that the toolbox needs to be replenished as well with the alternatives that we referred before. And here, also linking to the second part of your question regarding improving availability and at least the authorization step of such solution, we see different activities taking place, being from the Commission or initiative at national level and research project. There's also the private sector. I can speak for ourselves, but in our association, there's been commitments made to invest in those alternatives, like 4 billion euro at global level in the area of biopesticide, or 10 billion when it comes to digital and precision farming, all those by 2030. So that's something taken 2 years ago, but we are clearly on a path to deliver on this by 2030. So when we talk about authorizations and trying to get those alternatives on the market in a quicker way, so at least farmers have all the tools available, I think everybody knows the bottlenecks and the issues. They were clearly identified by the Commission. In its refit report, we are stepping out of the SUR per se here. It's more the regulation 1107. But in general, if I can point the lack of resources at member state level, or even the lack of trust between member states when we speak about the mutual recognition system that should theoretically on paper work much, much better. We still have requests for extra requirements coming from one country and not another, or dossier completely reopened when they should just trust the evaluation done by partners from neighbor countries in a single zone. So that's clearly something we see also the Commission is trying to solve, and we really welcome those developments. There's upcoming events in that direction, so we hope positive steps can be taken to make the functioning of the legislation work better. But that would be applicable to anything, being a biopesticide or being novel chemistry with a better profile for the environment or human health. And maybe just one point, when we speak about alternatives such as biopesticides, in terms of accessibility for farmers, that's true. That's something we still need at least 7 years on average to get a solution through the whole system, scientific evaluation and then authorization step at the active level, and then for the product. So it can be very time consuming. We also see questions being raised because evaluators are using requirements and guidelines which were designed for conventional chemistry initially. And sometimes it does not click, does not fit with some new techniques we didn't know about 5 years ago or even 2 years ago. We see some of those solutions appearing in other regions, thinking some specific type of protein or you name it. And this kind of thing are very interesting, potentially. They need full evaluation, of course. The safety remains a core first principle. However, that's something we would call for, that some adaptation of guidelines and how scientific evaluations are done should be put in place. We really believe that would help getting these kind of solutions, getting their specificities clearly looked at in a good way, not to put extra hurdles on their evaluation so they can get quicker access to the market. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laurent, for your expertise and insights on some key challenges and opportunities when it comes to implementing sustainable agricultural practices. I would like now to turn over Peter from CEST. Considering digital and precision agriculture, does CEST perceive the SUR as a catalyst for developing alternatives that benefit future farmers?
Yes, thank you. Digital and precision agriculture are one of the tools that can support the optimization of resources and the development of alternatives when it comes to pest management. But 4 aspects need to be tackled before making them viable, reliable, and affordable, and facilitate their uptakes. First of all, responsibility. We need to discuss who is responsible in terms of public and private research and development, as well as market placing, whether it's biocontrol options or new robotics. Second, adaptability, ensuring that these solutions are adaptable to farm environment, which means user-friendly, integrated within existing systems and equipment, and of course, scalable. Thirdly, inclusivity, including all sectors in the process, also those niche sectors where we have seen less alternatives arise. For example, the rice and sprout sector. Some of those crops already are facing disappearance because of a lack of alternatives. And lastly, accessibility, ensuring uptake through viable, reliable, and affordable options. And for this, we need to put forward more enabling tools, in particular, 2 of them, being investment and knowledge. Investment, first of all, because alternative tools come with a higher cost. Mechanic is more expensive than chemical crop protection at the moment. So we'd like to see some investment help, especially for young farmers in rising out of the SUR. And second, as I mentioned, knowledge. We need more investment in knowledge exchange and training programs for farmers, focusing on alternatives and advisory services to support farmers to uptake these tools. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter, for sharing your perspective on sustainable agricultural practices and also for underscoring the importance of engaging with young farmers in the transition toward more sustainable and resilient agri-food systems. So I would like now to provide the floor to Mr. Hofer. No worries.
Excuse me.
So the question that I would like to ask you is what strategy can be employed to maximize the utilization of funds for promoting innovation and fostering alternative developments, driving the transition towards more sustainable agriculture, all while ensuring local level development without affecting the CAP funds?
Of course, our farmers must be supported in this transition to sustainable farming. We regret the fact that the national strategic plans lack ambition when it comes to reducing the quantities of pesticides and, above all, their risks. And we hope that the national action plans on pesticide will be more ambitious. But the CAP budget earmarked for agri-environmental measures will not be sufficient to support this transition. That is why we have proposed the creation of a new national fund for pest management that could be financed by a risk-based taxation of pesticides, by contributions of retailers, or by penalty payments. We also need to protect our farmers from unfair competition. That is why we have also proposed to prohibit imports of products treated with unauthorized pesticides to avoid unfair competition and by reciprocity to prohibit exports of unauthorized pesticides. On July 2022, the Commission published a report which confirms the legal feasibility of applying EU health and environmental standards to imported agricultural and agri-food products. But in order to have solid arguments to defend this line with our trading partners, Europe must first ensure its own consistency. We should therefore stop exemptions and exceptions for the use of pesticides for certain crops. Moreover, the EU will have to agree on truly standardized internal production conditions. The revision of the CUD directive of the use of pesticides with the Commission's proposals to transform into a binding regulation should be seen as an opportunity to start rebuilding a harmonized European area. Intra-community space must no longer be distorted by internal competition if Europe is to be able to put a united front against its trading partners. The Commission prefers to rely on the inclusions of clauses and its forthcoming bilateral agreements and recalls the areas in which the Union has already extended its domestic production standards to import products through bilateral cooperation. However, the weakness of the chapters devoted to sustainable development or the preservation of the environment of these agreements questions the EU ability to effectively drive its partners towards ambitious standards. Almost all the measures set out are non-binding and no penalties are provided for non-compliance with one of the two parties. Integration of EU health and environmental standards to imported agricultural and agri-food products within the framework of the WTO will require long negotiations, but we believe that it is a necessary step to better align the EU's environmental requirements with its trade policy. Finally, to achieve the target of halving the use of pesticides by 2030, it is important to develop and promote alternatives to synthetic pesticides, such as biocontrol products, which are currently undergoing rapid development. In this regard, this simplification for the approval procedure for low-risk substances is essential. The conversion of resistant old varieties and the development of new ones, more resistant, should be facilitated by the adoption today by the European Commission of a legislative proposal on seeds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hofe, for your important role as a core rapporteur on the file and for emphasizing the significance of regional perspective in shaping effective and fair policies. So I would like to move on now to Elena. So in the context of the challenges faced in building a fair framework for farmers, how does agroecology offer solutions that promote resilience, sustainability, and equity in the agriculture sector? And what are some concrete examples of successful agroecological practices and their benefits to farmers and the environment? I know you have some slides, so I will display them for you.
Yeah, thank you a lot for this very relevant question and for offering again the opportunity to show how agroecology can offer solutions for the drastic reduction of pesticides use. So yeah, we can go, I think, on the, so this one the first, we can go on the next one, just to show you also, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the concept of agroecology. But just to stress out that agroecology has been defined through 13 guiding principles by the high-level panel of experts on world food security from the United Nations in 2019, showing that there are guiding principles that help to redesign food system and move towards more sustainability and also fairness. I won't go through all of them if I want to remain the time for conversation, but just to stress out, also reacting to some colleagues pointed out with innovation, we see through those 13 principles that also social innovations are really important to also redesign food systems as a whole, and that's the only way also to move towards more autonomy and more resilience in total. And also one key principle that I like to point out is also the co-creation of knowledge between farmers and scientists. So yeah, that's also to stress out the point and highlight that innovations, if developed, need to also be created and made in good intelligence with farmers, because the knowledge that farmers have on their territory, on their ecosystem is huge and needs to be supported, and the scientific community can work hand in hand to provide solutions for the pesticides reduction, among others. We can go on the next slide. Also to show you that agroecological transition is also a process, and there are 3 levels of transition. So that is a scientific publication showing also what are the levels of transition if we want to move towards more sustainability for our food systems. And there are basically 3 logics through which we can move towards more sustainability. The first one is efficiency. So we can improve the efficiency by, for example, reducing the quantity of pesticides that are used. We can also substitute one substance through a less toxic one. But actually, agroecology moves towards the pathway through which is the most efficient for more sustainability and more resilience is actually the redesign of agri-food systems. So that includes that it's a systemic approach. We not only cherry pick one practice and it will change everything. We have to take into account soil health, the biodiversity also at different levels. We have to take into account also socio-cultural aspects regarding those changes. So that's one context point that I think it's important to stress out. We can go on to the next one. Sorry, so that was more, so we can go on the next. Some scientific publication have defined what are agroecological crop practices, crop protection practices, and it basically is defined by the reduction of pest impact through the reorganization of cropping practices. And by this, it means that we need to improve also the diversification and improve the resilience of the whole food system. And basically, it is sustained by harnessing natural processes of agroecosystem, and we can also improve also the biological interaction and synergies. So that's where also soil health is very important. We need to also improve the synergies between plant, animal, and microbial community. So that's important to take into account this aspect, and to develop one also very important aspect in when willing to reduce pesticides use is also the fact of developing a dense ecological networks at the farm and also at the landscape level, because that's where we will find also the predators of pests. That's really important to take into account, and that's the basic of agronomy, is to be sustained by natural processes in agroecosystems. We can go on the next slide with showing key agroecological practices for cropping, for crop systems. So we can see the different scales of application. For example, as I mentioned, the restoration of soil health is a big part of the puzzle when willing to reduce pesticides uses. So for example, the direct seeding into living cover crops, reducing the tillage in order to keep also the soil structure and restore soil life. Organic fertilization is also one important practice that we can put in place at the field level. At the cropping system level, there are also different practices to improve the synergies and diversity. So for example, with intercropping, diversifying crop rotation and having them longer so that a pest doesn't succeed and outbreaks all the production. And also at the landscape level, I think it's also really key to mention the integration of semi-natural landscape elements such as hedges, grass strips, etc. We can go on to the next one. Sorry, I'm a bit longer. I will accelerate. Just to show you, in March we had the luck, and MEP Saravina hosted also this farm visit, and we had also the luck to count on MEP Franc Bogovič participation, and we visited a very nice example of a transition towards an agroecological system. And that's a very nice example. So I will maybe not go through all the practices, but basically that's a farm that shows that the integration between cropping and livestock system is really key to really improve the synergies between both. The farmer has reduced the work on soil and has restored soil health through no-till practices and has been able to reduce more and more the use of pesticides. Now today the farmer has managed to have feed autonomy on the farm. He's also independent on no synthetic fertilizers on the farm. And also what is interesting to show when speaking today, today's discussion is about next generation agriculture. That is a farm that his children want to take over, and the question of regeneration renewal is really key. So that's also to show that more viable and resilient farming systems are more probable to be taken over by a next generation, and is also more financially accessible for them. I don't know if there is a next slide. Yeah, there is. Just some key points about how what is why agroecological systems are fit for the next generation agriculture. First of all, it permits to stock carbon in the soils. It's also an efficient way to restore biodiversity and maintain it. Through also having being able to use all the ecosystem services that are on the farm. Also, that's a great way to improve job creation in the farming sector and improve the generational renewal. And also, that's a shift, and agroecology permits to shift from chemical-intensive agriculture through towards a knowledge-intensive, and that's also a better way to farm. Also, that's really rewarding to be able to understand the system and to find also fitting solutions for farming more sustainably. May I go to the last one? Sorry if it's a bit long. That was, just maybe some 2 points, and that's also the occasion to sustain our support with what Peter from CEST said about the importance of farm advisory services. So that's why also for us it's really important to not wait any longer and delaying the transition towards agroecology and reduction of pesticides, because the longer we wait, also the closer we get to tipping points and regarding climate change, biodiversity loss, and also the collapse of family farmings in Europe. And that's also important for us to stress out that the transition towards agroecology also needs an important support. Also, through the development of independent and efficient farm advisory services, because, as I mentioned, that's also a knowledge-intensive practice and systemic approaches. So there need to be also an important support for it. And also following the principle of public money for public good, there also need to be mechanisms to support farmers in those transitions and make it also economically viable to take the risk to reduce pesticides. So thank you. Sorry for having taken a long time.
Thank you very much, Elena. Thank you for sharing your expertise when it comes to agroecology, and also for your contribution to the discussion on sustainable agricultural practices, and for stressing the importance on integrating agroecological practices in policymaking. So thank you very much for your insights. So moving on, I would like to address the next question to Dr. Schmidt, connected online. So is it possible for innovation and alternatives to conventional pesticides, such as biopesticides, to play a role in mitigating the impact of agricultural practices on the quality of drinking water?
Given the problems I've noticed before, we have with the chemical synthetic pesticides, change is clearly needed. And we as a water sector basically support the development and introduction of biological alternatives, and also as in the report before on agroecologically farming. However, if we look at the biopesticides, so far what we notice is that the market and the areas of applications are very limited so far. And to our opinion, in order to get a step further there, they need to prove that they are as effective as the chemical pesticides. They need to be affordable. And with regard to our respect, it is also important that we have a proper risk management and approval authorization process here for these substances, in order to avoid regrettable substitutes, as we call them. So those substances and their metabolites need to be non-toxic. They should be fully degradable, so that we don't end up with any dead-end metabolites, as we have that in several cases with the synthetic pesticides. We personally, or we believe that one solution is not enough, that we need a balanced mix of measures, and these mix will lead to the overall goal in the end. Personally, I expect a lot from the developments in precision farming. I visited last month such an application there, and this was very impressive. So I think the development is here already very far, and is going in the right direction. We as a water sector have a lot of experience with cooperative approaches with the farmers. And what we notice is that it obviously makes sense to support farmers financially, because the implementation often fails due to the high investment costs and missing expertise at the local level. So there's also a question of training. And so the whole battery of integrated pest management is very dependent on how to transfer the existing knowledge and the information to more widely to the whole farmer groups. Overall, based on these experiences with the cooperative approaches with the farmers, we think that it's all a question of how we can create a win-win situation at the end for both sides, because those approaches are typically the most sustainable ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schmidt, for highlighting some important aspects when it comes to water management, and emphasizing the importance of having sustainable practices for safeguarding water quality. So moving on, I'd like to provide the floor to Jelte. So could you discuss the role of TPA and machinery in reducing the reliance on conventional solutions? And furthermore, what are the latest innovation in machinery, and what direction do you foresee for the future?
Thank you. Well, as I mentioned, the nozzles are, of course, an important one. What we always also see developed in our world is that in the old days you were driving up and down with your tractor with different implements 5, 6, 7 times, and now you can actually often drive up and down once, because you have so many implements hanging on your machine and doing the different practices at the same time: seeding, fertilizing, and I was impressed by the presentation by Elena. We see farming moving away from plowing. Regenerative agriculture is coming up more and more. We have some very interesting technical developments there. Farmers even welding their additions to the machines my members produce, and even improve them themselves to their circumstances. You don't see that in many businesses, that happens, of course. That's very promising. Of course, the nozzle technology that's very important. Better precise spraying. In the old days, we remember maybe even aircraft flying over, throwing everything out. That's maybe not the best idea, is it? So if you get closer, if you have the booms of the sprayers closer and lower to your land, to your crop, you can prevent drift and chemicals actually flowing around and being unproductive. What you want is chemicals to be as effective as they are, plant protection products, whatever they are, to be as effective as they are, and use as less as you can. That's the key. That's the key. Another thing is, of course, is mapping your crop. We have the newest technologies in the machines effectively give you a very clear picture of what your crop needs, and measures, and say, hey, my crop here needs a bit more fertilization, my crop here is endangered and needs the plant protection product. So you can scan, actually, so you see much more. That's very promising in these fields. So technology can do a lot, but we need to say, I mean, again, the machines are getting more expensive, more complicated. They need to be made in factories. you need to have technical skilled staff that can make them. You need to have dealers that can maintain them, because for farmers it's of course essential that they work at the moment they need it, because you need to be able to spray when it happens. And there's a thing of permits for certain plant protection products, of course, that in some national schemes it takes 10 days for a permit to come in, while you need to spray within 2 hours, because otherwise your crop is gone. So bureaucracy at national level there plays a role. We hear from farmers that can say, this takes too long. And then again, the toolbox Laurent mentioned, that's the toolbox that in emergencies, certain tools at least stay available, because if they're not available, you will lose your crop. And is that sustainable? Financially for the farmer it's not sustainable, but for environment, that you work, you use energy, you use fertilizer maybe, that can be organic matter, that can be chemical fertilizer, whatever, and that you don't have a yield out that's a loss. That's not sustainable. One example I always have in mind in these kind of discussions is Sri Lanka. We all know Sri Lanka. In 2019, the president there said, "Okay, we go organic." So he made it law that chemical fertilizer and crop plant protection products were not allowed into the country anymore. Within half a year revolution, and the gentleman had to flee his own country, because 500,000 people were on the brink of starvation as a result of this, because yields were so much lower. Exports of tea, I mean, I had a cup of tea, probably from Sri Lanka, was so much lower. So the Sri Lanka example is a real-life experiment at the expense of these poor people who suffered badly from it. Be careful, be very careful, and be very grateful what we have here in Europe. And I would say that experiment puts the facts on the table that if you do this transition step by step, very, very slow, different practices. Elena eloquently showed what can happen in France, but you have different areas in Europe, of course, that have different needs. And we know the Austria example, of course. Austria has 25% ecological agriculture, but who is using the toolbox of, well, sort of forbidden chemicals most? It's Austria. And otherwise, we know the court the court in Luxembourg ruled on that this not that long ago. So you have officially organic farming, but it can only, well, a lot of yield loss would be effectively the result if you don't use the toolbox people from CropLife and their members are providing. And that's the reality we have. I think we should keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hjalte. Thank you for emphasizing the potential of technological advancement in reducing the reliance on conventional agricultural practice. So thank you very much for that. So I would like, with that, we finished the panel discussion. So I would like to thank all panelists in the room and the ones connected online for your interesting insights. And as we're approaching the Q&A session in the discussion, I would like to invite participants who are in the room to prepare your questions, and also for participants who are joining online to send your question in the chat box. But before reaching the Q&As, I would like to provide the floor to two additional MEPs for the reactions on the panel discussion that we just heard. So here in the room, we have Mr. Olekas and Ms. Wiener. So thank you very much for being here. So Mr. Olekas, I would like to provide you immediately the floor for your reactions.
Thank you very much indeed. It was a pleasure and honor to be here and listen to your discussion and hear your discussion. I came a little bit later because I have participated in another meeting where we discussed about the need or shortage or problem for food supplying to North Africa created by Russia war in Ukraine and stopping the export from Ukraine to Africa countries. And in this situation, the role of sustainable agriculture, I think, is especially important today, as our society have to provide food and and livelihoods to the world population by preserving land and resources for the future generation. Within the EU and wider, our main priorities are achieve food security and quality, keeping our farming model, ensuring access to the quality food and utilize sustainable farming practice that respect biodiversity, water quality, and climate change. And sustainable use of plant protection products is very important for sustainable agriculture. Myself, I am a beekeeper, and I know how important it is for beekeepers and farmers to work together to preserve pollinators, to reduce the use of chemical pesticides, and to keep our bees and farms healthy and happy. However, we must also remember that the farmers do not use plant protection products just for the sake of it. Between 25 and 40% of the world potential crops production is lost annually to weeds, pests, and diseases. Without crop protection, these losses can be doubled. But if we limit, and we should limit, the use of plant protection products, the farmer should be given the opportunity to protect their crops by other means. And today was mentioned the bio products, the agroecology, and research and innovation have, of course, a key role to play in order to make agriculture and food systems more sustainable and resilient, by remaining competitive and keeping sources of employment in the countryside. Today, also the Commission announced the proposal for new genomic techniques. I think it's also the one of the possibilities, such gene editing could provide many opportunities, allowing the cultivation of plants that are more resistant to diseases, environmental conditions, climate change, and pests, and can be grown with lower agricultural cost. This leads to a more resilient and sustainable agri-food system and contributes to the Green Deal. More alternatives to traditional pesticides are needed, and today we hear some suggestions, in order to support farmers in their transitional towards a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable agriculture system. And as was mentioned, alternatives such as biopesticides, digital and precise agriculture, new genomic techniques, and more enablers can be reduced the use of synthetic pesticide. We need more funding and more adjustment periods for farmers who have to find these alternatives and implement them. Usually they're pretty high cost. We also must take into account the differences in use of pesticides among the countries in the EU. In my country, Lithuania, the average use of pesticides 1 kilo per hectare. In Netherlands, as I know, 10 kilo per hectare. And so any targets to reduce this use must be fair and based not only on the percentages, but also on absolute numbers. At the same time, we also need to foster the role of young farmers and support generational renewal to ensure a viable rural areas and fight against rural exodus. Overuse of pesticides is a complicated problem, and I think that we all, as today, we need to collaborate with efforts and innovative solution to solve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Likas, for your insights in the discussion and for stressing, among others, the importance of having fruitful collaboration between stakeholders. And I would like now to provide the floor to Ms. Wiener for her intervention.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the co-hosts Ulrike Müller and Franc Bogovič for this invitation. And I want to say a great big thanks to all of the speakers to share with us our perspective and our ideas. Before I want to come to my speech, I just wanted to say something to Mr. Wiersma, because I cannot let your words staying like this without any comment. I'm an organic farmer, I'm a beekeeper, I'm a chef, and I'm Austrian. And if you mix the number of organic farming in Austria with the fact that they use neonicotinoids and say, this is a relation, then I must say, this is not good when you do this, because it's wrong. And I want to say here that organic farming is not using any chemical synthetic pesticides, point. So, and the other thing, when you mention Sri Lanka, you know, the fact is that just let down chemical pesticides and think this is organic farming, then you are also very mistaken about this fact. It's you have to study it. It's not about just let it go and then it works. Otherwise, everyone would do that. So please, if we have a discussion, it should be serious and it should be true. I have to mention this because I cannot let you go out of this. I'm very interested in hear different viewpoints and on how we can achieve a reduction of chemical pesticides, of course. You know, I'm the rapporteur of the SUR, and so I'm really discuss with a lot of people, and I have a lot of discussions going on with other groups, with stakeholders, and so on. And I invite you to share your view with me and to discuss with me, and we can meet. But I think we should stay on a good level to be true, because this reduction we urgently need in order to protect vital ecosystems, biodiversity, and public health. I think we agree all on this. We have this conference. Listening to the discussion this far, I think it is quite clear that while there is a strong agreement on the fact that we need to reduce the use of pesticides, opinions still differ on the way how this is to be done, and also how it is to be distributed between EU member states. Listening to the debate and also looking at the introductory note for this event, I would like to come back to something fundamental. While we can certainly discuss the potential that technologies like precision farming may or may not have for the reduction in the use of chemical pesticides, this is not the central point and ambition of the SUR, and in a wider sense, the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy. In fact, the Farm to Fork strategy intends to affect policies that facilitate a change in our agricultural practice for more sustainability. For the SUR, this means farming practices should change in such a way that the need for pesticides in agriculture is significantly reduced. The main tool the SUR foresees for this is IPM, as some of the other speakers have already mentioned as well. But I think it is the key. It is about implementing IPM based on sound agroecological principle across the EU, so as to free agriculture and farmers from their dependence on expensive and harmful chemical pesticides. So, while technological innovations can certainly help us on the way to reducing pesticides by making the application more precise, they do not help us to tackle the systemic issues that have hampered the uptake of the truly sustainable farming practices thus far. The same applies to new genomic techniques. Also, the debate here is an even bigger one on the risks they could be posed to biodiversity and organic farming, especially if they are not duly labeled as GMOs. We should also not forget that digital and other technical solutions often come at a high price, and in fact can further favor economies of scale and the development of a farming system based on highly concentrated land ownership and exploitation rather than on small-scale businesses and family farms. We were in we were 1 week ago, we were in Romania, and we speak with a lot of farmers, and I speak a lot also afterwards, few days with small-scale farms. And there's a huge gap in between agri-industrial farming, what they want, and small-scale farmer and family farms. And it's not the same. There is not one number of farmers, there is a lot. And we have to think about who we want to protect and who we want to fight for. All of this to say that instead of banking on expensive innovations, we should also look very closely at what is already available to us and could be implemented starting tomorrow. Of course, agroecological practices also necessitate a lot of knowledge and expertise. That is why I think it is much more important to put emphasis on making available public money through the gap on national budget. And I think the idea from the taxes is a very good one. I had the same in my SUR. For training and independence advice for farmers so that knowledge of agroecological practice can be spread as widely as possible. One notable example was the presentation of the IPM Works project here in the Parliament some weeks ago. Farmers who implement IPM as part of this project showed very clearly that it is possible to reduce the use of chemical pesticides with agroecological practices while maintaining yield at almost the same level. They also showed that this caused them no financial disadvantage, despite the fact that some of these practices are more labor intensive because they could save on pesticides. But they did emphasize that know-how and advice are important aspects of the successful implementation of IPM. As a policymaker, we should focus much more on how we can set up such structures across the EU and on how we make sure there's an adequate funding for them. In addition, we should ensure that farmers get the support they need, not just in terms of training and advice, but also in terms of financial security when they go ahead with implementing long-term changes in their farming practices. For example, by the setting up for insurance schemes against losses, etc. I would leave it that for now and look forward for the further discussion. Very thanks to having me here.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wiener. Thank you for your expertise on the topic and for sharing your insights with us here today. I would now like to provide the floor to our audience. If there are some questions from the audience, I see one hand raised. Three, well, now I see many more, but please.
Yes, hello. Julia Hammermeister from the German Farmers Association. And I would like to direct my question to Ms. Wiener, because I would like to ask you how you are progressing in your negotiations and whether you think that you would be able to finalize the report for the vote on the 11th September. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this question. You know, in Germany, there's a saying that people live longer. So we are still in the negotiations, and you know that there's a lot of pressure and a lot of fights in the parliament in between the teams. So, but I can't say anything at the moment. I go day by day, step by step. I think we progress, but in the end, we will see what's coming up. So sorry that I can't say anymore because it's also the negotiations and I don't want to say anything. But of course, everyone who knows me knows my meanings and my values. But as a rapporteur, I want to... gehen Sie schon. Es war nett, dass Sie da waren die ganze Zeit. Nein, fand ich toll. He's an MEP and he's sitting in my committee. We are not always on the same page, to say it like this. But as a rapporteur, I really try to find compromises. We have to have a majority for a strong and a good SUR, and I hope to reach that, but it's not so easy.
Are there any other questions? Yes, please.
Yes, my name is Herman van Mellaert, representing the International Biocontrol Manufacturers Association. Amongst the alternatives that have been mentioned, biological control, and that's actually a bit broader than biopesticides, I think has been mentioned many times. And of course, as an association, we believe in the huge potential of biological control to contribute to reduction of synthetic pesticides. Actually, within the IPM context, I think the proposal also reinforces that in addition to more agroecological practices as a first layer of intervention before going to the last resort, synthetic pesticides. We should be aware that Europe is amongst the worst places in the world today to bring new biocontrol solutions to the market. It takes 7 years, as has been mentioned. It's very costly. We see many of our members choosing to go to other parts of the world, to the United States, to Canada, to Brazil, and saying we'll invest there rather than here in Europe. We believe that needs to be changed. I think the impact assessment that has been brought out brings that also to the forefront in a very clear and powerful way. We believe the proposal of the SUR does a lot, maybe not everything we could dream of, but it does a lot to facilitate biocontrol contributing more in European agriculture, to facilitate bringing more solutions to European farmers. It defines biocontrol, and that's crucial. It allows to set targets, but it also takes a number of important steps to accelerate and facilitate the authorization of these products through a number of amendments that have been brought forward. So my remark and my call and my question is basically to the MEPs here organizing the event. Do you believe that, let's say, we can reach compromise on this important legislation which is on the table now and which allows us to do something now about this very bad situation for biological control in Europe? And so I think instead of harnessing alternative solutions for the SUR, I hope the meaning and the common conclusion of our seminar will be that SUR is actually the way to harness alternatives for synthetic pesticides, and we very much urge and encourage that SUR should be discussed and adopted, and that it should not be delayed and or destroyed, but the two could be the same. So it's really a call to bring these discussions to a conclusion, a good conclusion that helps everybody forward and reach their goals. Thank you.
Anyone would like to take the floor? I mean, it's more of a statement rather than a question. All right.
I can say a few words. Yeah. Yes, I agree with you what you started, and it is not only the case for biological control. We compete in Europe in many things, not only biological control, and this is one of big obstacles, like we heard about regulation, legislation, certification of machinery and other things. And in many topics, it should be changed if we want to have and to speed this process. We all support, and that's the reason why. Also, when we speak about, as I said in the beginning, in EPP group, we think that things doesn't go together, and the speed of bans is overspeeded against tools how to reach these topics. That's the main concern, and concern for farmers. And as I said, Sarah exposed small farmers. I'm in Slovenia. We are 7 hectares average farms. And how can we develop machinery for small farmers, these tools, and how can we convince young farmers to take over farm if they are today as somebody who poison people, who destroy the nature, others? So I think we should go, and as we see, it works. I fully support agroecology methodology, and many farmers start to use a lot of these practices from organic farming for conservative agriculture, which is all concluded, and you are much broader and all food system, and it's necessary to change it. And when we come also about financing, as I said, we saw the inflation, the reduction of money for agriculture, and now there are different proposals and which are connected with farming, with agriculture, use of land, and everybody view is direct to CAP, and we are afraid that this is not the right way how we can do. So that's our things that Sarah said. There are, as I know, I'm not in any committee, but there are big differences, and also there are some red lines also in Agri committee in different groups about financing, about sensitive areas, and what was said very good. These practices in different countries are so different that sometimes if I am not so sure that it is possible to make regulation from Parliament and solve all problems. So we must find solutions together with farmers, together with knowledge, with other things, and allow to have different solutions in different countries, like you said. So it's not easy, but what for me is a good result that we heard, reduction in the last 4 years was 33%. It's going on the base of all pressure which is in previous CAP, existing new CAP which started this year, and I think that we're going in the right direction. But about this SUR, it will be a lot of debate before it will be, we will reach agreement if we will reach.
We have time just for one extra question, and I saw a hand raised. Yes.
Yes, good afternoon. I was not thinking about taking the floor, but this latest remark made me do it. My name is Jérôme Roche. I represent the agriculture contractors. So the contractors are the service providers who are offering services to the farmers. And when you mentioned the question of the size of the farms, etc., definitely our sector is an increasing sector, because more and more farmers are getting older. They do not want to do the job themselves. They do not want to get the equipment for the technology. And as we are totally agnostic in terms of technology, we can do organic, we can do non-organic, whatever. I think one thing that I find, and which is not discussed, is do you really need to equip all farmers with all the equipment? Can't we find a way to have a service system where the farmers, what any size of farm they have, what any methodology they use, what any treatment they want, they can have the services? And this is why we try to promote with the CAP. And I think it's something that I don't find a lot in the debate, because equipping the farmers with all the technology, when you think about all the problem today of recruiting a skilled labor workforce, when you think about all the problem that the farmers, basically, they all need the same machinery at the same time to do the same job, as my colleague from SEMA mentioned, I mean, this is really something that I haven't seen. So what do you think about this? Thank you.
Ja, was heißt das auf Dings? Ja, genau. So there are a few systems that farmers put themselves together and share machines. I think this is very helpful. But I have also to mention that it's also very tricky, because in organic farming, you know, you have to react maybe very quick. And if your neighbor have the same problem and you don't have too much machines, then this will be not the best solution. That's why in my farm, then we have our own machines to get independent, and we do our jobs when we want to do it. But this is another thing. I have a huge farm in the Uckermark in the northeast from Germany. It's not comparing with 2 hectares or 3 hectares. And but the world is fed by small-scale farmers, and we never speak about that this kind of biodiversity in between farms and farmers are the fruitful future from our nutrition, from our landscape, from our farming system. When we promote too much techno-fix and and also drones, and the worst for me is definitely NGTs. Then we will have erosion about the biodiversity for seeds, for farmers, and so on. But as you know, I think the best solution is nobody needs also a mowing machine in their private garden. But you know how people are thinking. Maybe in the future we have to think about that, what is really sustainable and what we can achieve in this way. So
we have time just for final questions. Yes, if you could ask your question, presenting yourself, and maybe to ask it quickly. Thank you.
It's maybe more a few short comments instead of a question, but maybe there's an indirect question. Christine de Schamfelare from Pesticide Action Network Europe. And just a comment we would like to make is that we feel like the health of farmers, that it's a topic that is essential to this file also, and that it doesn't get the attention that is needed. But yeah, so the health of farmers, it's really important, but also the health of bystanders and of all people living in agricultural areas. They are at particular risk for pesticide exposure through different exposure routes, through inhalation, skin. So this is something that is important to stress, and that is also one of the benefits of this SUR, except for the positive impact on long-term food security. It's also a very essential file regarding health. And then regarding IPM, we would like to mention that yes, IPM was already mandatory through the directive, to the Sustainable Use Directive since 2014. So I think that the mandatory crop-specific rules, that it's really the core of the SUR, for the SUR also to really make a difference in comparison to what was already there. And of course, these crop-specific rules need to be very well designed and are very dependent on the local environment, on the local cropping system. But it's a very clear framework is needed, we think, for the SUR to be effective. We would also like to stress that a lot of toxic pesticides are withdrawn over time, so it can't be used anymore. So it's also in the interest of farmers to develop and to apply these IPM measures, to be also less dependent of part of these pesticides that also will be banned over time. Then maybe just a comment on the harmonized risk indicator, because also in the text of the extra impact assessment that was published today, there is also referred to the progress that is being made. But I think most parties agree about the limitations of this risk indicator, and that it at this moment doesn't give an accurate image of the reductions because of the classification used in it, because the amount of the kilograms of pesticides is used, for example. But I know in the discussions there's already made room for improvement in these indicators. Yes, and then we would also like to agree with what is being said here today, that the difference will indeed have to come from a systemic approach. So a one-on-one replacement to replace with a technological solution a certain pesticide, it won't have the impact we need. We really need a whole system approach, and to really work with these biological processes, as it was said today, if we really want resilient, future-proof systems in regards of climate change, in regards of pests. So I think, this is also one of the main messages to take along. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if any of our speakers would like to react to this. Okay, so I think we're reaching the end of today's event. So thank you. I would like to thank all participants who joined in person and online, and also our excellent set of speakers for all your intervention. I think this event has been extremely insightful. So let's carry forward the lessons that we have learned today. and for empowering farmers and fostering a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable agricultural system. I would also like to thank our two co-hosts of today's event, Mr. Bogovič and Ms. Müller. And without further ado, I would like to provide the floor to Ms. Müller for her closing remarks of the event. Thank you.
Dear panelists, dear participants, first of all, I would like to thank everyone for their participation, especially Sarah and users, and thank to our Intergroup Secretariat and my colleague Franz Bogovič for organizing this event with me. Today we have heard from many sides involved in the discussion on the SUR and more broadly on the future of sustainable agriculture. Formats like this are very important in times of very polarized discussions, because to me it's clear that we can only find good solutions for the future in dialogue with each other, carefully balancing the different legitimate interests. Today's event is titled Harnessing Solutions for the SUR. I believe this is a well-chosen title, and let me explain why. In the EU bubble, we tend to look at problems or legislative proposals in an isolated manner. Often we fail to see the big picture, to see how everything comes together on the ground. The SUR focuses on the reduction of the use and the risk of plant protection. However, sustainable agriculture is much more complex. We have heard today. Sure, we have to look at the impact of biodiversity and the environment, but we also have to take into account other aspects, such as food production, other agriculture outputs that contribute to a bio-based, climate-neutral circular economy, climate impacts, livelihoods in rural areas, and so on. So when discussing the SUR, we need to take a step back and move towards system thinking. What does this mean for the SUR? I could now go into details about my view on the reduction targets, provision, or on IPM or sensitive areas. But this has been done and will be done extensively in this house. So I want to focus on setting SUR in perspective. This is where I come back to the title Harnessing Alternative for SUR. The SUR is one tool to further improve the sustainable agriculture, regardless whether we agree with the chosen approach. In order to achieve the goals and to get the balance right between all the different functions we expect from agriculture, we need to think about the tools that are available to the farmers. These are the alternatives that we to refer. To be clear, I'm not just speaking about new plant protection products that are more effective and have less side effects on environment to replace old products. Achieving a more sustainable agriculture that delivers on all expectations is a highly complex issue. This means that solutions will be complex as well. There are no silver bullets. Instead, we need to look at a solution that works in synergies. We need to use many little hammers to allow farmers to optimize the system in a flexible way under local conditions. They need access to all the tools to further improve and adapt the integrated pest management flexibility. This will include new alternative plant protection products such as biological control and low-risk products. But this will also require other tools such as more resilient crop varieties, proven and innovative preventive measures, precise agriculture technologies such as drones, digital agriculture, and so on. Only a combination of different approaches can lead to success. Now, to draw the link back to the SUR debate with the proposal, I believe that two key mistakes were made. First, the proposal puts the horse before the carriage by setting reduction targets, before all necessary steps were taken to ensure that all the alternatives find their way to the fields. specifically, we would need to have the discussion on the NGT's proposal before the SUR. Also, several steps should have been taken to improve the functioning of the approval system for plant protection products for biological control. We are missing guidance on promising categories of substances. The approval process is far too lengthy and we need a fast-track procedure. These are no new findings, but the Commission hasn't done their homework before moving ahead with the SUR. I recently have sent a letter with concrete proposals to Commissioner Kyriakides. Maybe some of you have seen it in the press. Second, the proposal missed the chance to be an encouraging and enabling framework for farmers to do better. There are barley and incentives for farmers. There is no helping hand from them to improve their practices, aside from the advisory service that already exists. Instead, the proposed seek to achieve its goals by a punitive approach, by reducing flexibility and by adding loads of administration burden. This way, we will not manage to take farmers along. I can tell you from many meetings and I had with farmers during the previous months that they feel overburdened and sidelined. And that with the proposal on the table, they have lost all the trust in the process. They don't see helping hand, they see a threatening hand. With this in mind, I think that we need to rethink our approach. We need to stop looking at the proposal in an isolated manner because the reality of farming simply does not allow that. And we need to take a more realistic perspective at the goals. They must be achievable with available means, improving the available means and making sure that innovation reaches the field. This should be our priority if we are serious about evolving to a more sustainable agriculture that delivers on all the expectations. Thank you again, everyone, for taking part in this debate today. I hope this gave us some food for thought and that this can be contribute to get out of the trenches and to find good solutions together for the farmers and the environment. Thank you so much.